Before I tell you how I became invisible to my own family, you need to know this. There's a pain sharper than losing someone you love. It's realizing they've chosen to erase you while you're still standing in front of them. I gave my son Brian everything, my time, my money, my heart, and it still wasn't enough. The deepest wounds don't bleed. They linger in the silence of a house you no longer belong in. Stick with me, and I'll show you how walking away became the loudest thing I ever did. When I drove away from Brian's house that cold Ohio morning, my suitcase rattling in the back seat, I wasn't just leaving a place. I was leaving a version of myself, the mother who thought love meant saying yes to everything, even when it broke her. The road blurred through tears, but they weren't for Brian or Tiffany. They were for the woman I'd let myself become, a shadow, a wallet, a doormat. I was done. Back home, my house felt like a stranger at first. The silence was deafening, but it wasn't empty. It was mine. I walked through each room, touching the walls like they might speak back. Harold's old armchair sat by the window, still indented from his weight. The kitchen table held the ghost of 1,000 meals I'd cooked alone. I didn't unpack that first day. Instead, I sat with a cup of tea, staring at the life I'd abandoned to help a family that didn't want me. The days that followed were a quiet rebellion. I didn't call Brian. I didn't text Tiffany. I didn't check their social media for signs of regret. I turned inward, reclaiming the pieces of myself I'd given away. I started small, morning walks through the neighborhood, past the same oak trees and cracked sidewalks I'd known for decades. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp leaves and possibility. I signed up for a pottery class at the community center, something I hadn't done since I was a young mother. My hands shook as I shaped the clay, but every wobbly mug I made felt like a declaration. I am still here. The first crack in their world came a month later. I was in the garden, pruning roses, when my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from Brian, his voice thin and unsteady. "Mom, we're in trouble. The bank's threatening to take the house. I don't know what to do." No apology. No acknowledgement of the money he'd siphoned from my account for his gambling. Just a plea, raw and desperate. I listened to it 3 times, my fingers tightening around the pruning shears. A part of me wanted to rush in, to fix it like I always had. But then I remembered Tiffany's words, "You don't contribute enough." I deleted the voicemail. That night, I lit a candle and wrote in my journal, "I am not their savior. I am not their solution. I am Maggie, and I am enough." The words felt like armor. I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself. For the first time, I understood that love doesn't mean carrying someone else's weight until you collapse. It means teaching them to stand, even if it hurts. Weeks turned into months, and their world continued to crumble. Tiffany's Instagram, once a curated gallery of perfection, grew sparse. No more photos of the boys in matching outfits or her sipping overpriced coffee. Instead, there were cryptic posts about tough times and starting over. A neighbor mentioned seeing their house listed for sale, the sign crooked in the front yard. Brian's texts became more frequent, each one a variation of the same theme. "We need you. Please." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much about myself, about the boys, about the truth they needed to face. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of gray Ohio dusk that makes everything feel heavier. I was sewing a quilt for a customer when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Brian standing there alone. His hair was longer, his jacket worn thin at the elbows. The boys weren't with him. Neither was Tiffany. He looked like a man who'd been running from something and finally run out of places to hide. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, stepping aside. He sat on the couch, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. "I messed up, Mom. Not just with the money, with everything. I let Tiffany talk to you like that. I let myself use you. I thought if I kept pretending everything was fine, it would be." He paused, his eyes searching mine. "I'm in Gamblers Anonymous now. I got a second job. I'm trying to fix it, but the house, we're losing it. Tiffany's gone to her mom's. The boys are with her." My heart twisted at the mention of the boys, but I stayed quiet. He continued, his voice breaking. I don't know how to do this without you, but I don't want your money. I want to learn how to be better. For them. For me. Will you help me? It was the question I'd been waiting for, not a plea for cash, but a plea for accountability. I stood, walked to my desk, and pulled out a folder. Inside was a plan, a budget, a list of local support groups, a contract outlining boundaries. This is how I'll help, I said, sliding it across the table. No more handouts. You follow this, you show up for meetings, you separate your finances from Tiffany's. I'll pay the past due mortgage to keep the house, for the boys, not for you. One time. After that, you're on your own. He stared at the folder, then at me. You're different, he said softly. I had to be, I replied. You made me invisible, Brian. I had to learn how to see myself again. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and signed the contract. We didn't hug. Not yet. But as he left, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. A spark of the boy who used to run to me when the world felt too big. The next 6 months were a slow climb. Brian kept his word, showing up to meetings, sticking to the budget, working nights as a delivery driver. Tiffany didn't come back, not to him at least. She moved to her mother's permanently, leaving Brian to raise the boys in a small apartment he rented with his own money. I didn't step in to fill the gaps. Instead, I sent the boys care packages, books, puzzles, handwritten notes promising Grandma was always there, even from afar. I visited when Brian invited me, but I didn't stay long. My home was my sanctuary now, not their safety net. One spring morning, I opened my door to find a small box on the porch. Inside was a photo frame, not one I'd sent, but a new one. It held a picture of Brian and the boys, standing in front of their new apartment, smiling. On the back, in Brian's uneven handwriting, was a note. We're standing because you taught us how. Thank you, Mom. I didn't cry.